I didn't see it coming, not the way most men describe. There were no late-night calls, no lipstick on collars, no second phone hidden in the glove box. What I got was worse. It started with nature. Lana, my wife of 11 years, suddenly loved the outdoors. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the outdoors. I grew up in it. My dad left me a cabin on Lake Nimble, tucked out in the timberlands 2 hours north of town. He and I used to go every season, deer in the fall, ducks in the winter, fishing all summer. That place meant something to me. It was where I learned to shoot, to fix things with my hands, and where I spent quiet nights just listening to the woods breathe. Lana had been up there maybe twice in our whole marriage. Once during our honeymoon phase, where she tripped on a root and complained about the mud smell. The second time was when we were trying to reconnect after a rough patch. She barely made it through one night before packing up and driving back to town at dawn. She always said she wasn't a cabin girl, until she was. It began around mid-September. She started wearing those outdoor leggings. Got herself a pair of boots, real ones, not the Target fashion kind. She even bought a flannel jacket that looked suspiciously like mine, except brand new. "You okay?" I asked one morning as she packed a small duffel. "Yeah," she said, zipping it shut. I don't know. I think I need more space. Nature helps me breathe." That would have been noble if it hadn't come out of nowhere. "Where are you going?" "The cabin. Our cabin." She looked at me like I'd asked something ridiculous. "Yes, Terry. Our cabin." That's when the weirdness began. At first, I figured it was some sort of self-care trend. Midlife identity shift. Maybe she was channeling some frustration into solo weekends. I didn't argue. Lord knows couples get into ruts. Maybe some time in the woods would clear her head. Then it became every weekend. Friday morning, she'd be packing snacks and books and those strange herbal teas she'd never liked before. Saturday nights, I'd get a single text, "Beautiful out here." Sunday afternoons, she'd return looking lighter, more relaxed, hair windblown, eyes brighter, but not like she was recharging, like she'd been seen. "You ever think of coming with me?" she asked one Wednesday while we were making dinner. I looked up from the cutting board. "Thought this was your thing now." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I guess it is." Then she kissed my cheek and stirred the soup. That's when it hit me. She wasn't inviting me. She was warning me. That Saturday, I told her I had to work the weekend shift. "I thought you had the new guy handling that." Called in sick. She bought it, smiled, kissed me, and left before 8 a.m. I waited until 10. Then I packed my gear. Dad's cabin sits on 10 wooded acres, hemmed in by thick birch and pine. There's a long gravel drive that cuts through a sloping ridge before it opens to the clearing. You can't see the house from the road, but you can see the fire pit from the duck blind. Dad built it facing the lake, about 30 yards from the cabin porch. We used it for hunting in the colder months, when mallards and pintails would fly low and early. It's dug into the ground, roofed in with deadfall and pine brush. Cold, cramped, and perfect for hiding. I got there by 1 p.m. and parked a mile out, off the service road. Walked the rest on foot, heart hammering. The smoke was already rising from the chimney. I crouched in the blind for over an hour, binoculars in hand. At first, all I saw was Lana, moving in and out of the cabin, carrying logs, sitting on the porch. She looked peaceful. Maybe I was wrong. Then, around 3:40 p.m., he appeared. Tall, bearded, tan jacket, moved like he'd been there before. She smiled when she saw him. Not like she smiled at me. They hugged long, intimate. His hand lingered on her lower back as she led him inside. I sat there for another hour. Didn't cry, didn't curse. Just sat, frozen, numb. When they lit the fire outside around dusk and toasted with mugs, she laughed. That high, sharp laugh I hadn't heard since our first year of marriage. I stayed until it was fully dark. Then I walked back to the truck. Didn't drive straight home. Just sat at the wheel and stared at the gravel. I didn't confront her that night. Didn't send a text. Didn't call. Instead, I started digging. First came the receipts. Lana's name was tied to a credit card she never told me about. One she opened the previous year. It had charges to outdoor supply stores, fuel stops near the cabin, a motel in Jasper, all while I was at home thinking she was finding herself in the woods. Then came the final nail. One afternoon while Lana was at the salon, I went up into the attic and pulled down my dad's old photo boxes. He kept family photos organized by year. In the 1998 box, high school graduation year, I found a photo that made my jaw lock. Me, My cousin Clay, and Lana. Back when we all used to hang out. Back when Clay was still around. He vanished after a bad falling out with the family. Something about money, an inheritance dispute, some borrowed funds from our uncle's accounts. I hadn't spoken to him since. But there he was, right next to me in that old photo. And when I looked close, I saw it. The way he was looking at her. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd circled back. To him. I didn't say a word. I started planning. I didn't sleep much after that first trip to the duck blind. Not because of the cold. Because every time I shut my eyes, I saw Alana's hand on his chest. Saw that campfire glow reflected in her smile. A smile I hadn't seen in years, and now I knew why. It wasn't mine anymore. It was his. Clay Maddox. My cousin. My father's brother's son. The same one who'd been booted from 2 family funerals and whispered about it every reunion. We hadn't spoken in a decade, and I'd figured that was permanent. Now here he was. In my cabin. With my wife. Like it was just another hunting trip. The next morning, I didn't even fake normal. Lana came home a little after noon on Sunday, claiming she'd taken the long way back to clear her head. She kissed my cheek. Smelled like cedar smoke and something sweet. Cologne, maybe. Not mine. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Long shift. She smiled, peeled off her jacket, and started humming while she unpacked. I watched her for a long moment. Then I walked outside and called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, my cousin Jake, who worked part-time as a courthouse clerk in Jasper County. Jake didn't like Clay. Never had. Last he'd heard, Clay was off the grid, which in Clay speak meant laying low. Why? Jake asked. You looking for him? I think he found me. I said. Jake was quiet for a beat. Want me to run his name? See if anything's current. I didn't hesitate. Yeah. Discreetly. He sighed. All right. But if this goes sideways, I'll handle it. 3 days later, I had more than I bargained for. Jake emailed me a scanned report. Clay had been picked up 6 months ago for suspicion of embezzling from a family trust in Kentucky, one connected to his ex-wife's parents. Charges hadn't stuck, but the civil suit was still active. His name was also tied to a shell LLC that had pulled several wire transfers from a pooled family account 2 counties over. The kicker? The trustee listed on that LLC was my name. Or at least, someone claiming to be me. Jake's message at the bottom of the report was simple. I don't know what he's planning. But if this gets deeper, lawyer up. Now it wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Family. Lying. Theft. And Lana. She wasn't just sleeping with him. She was helping him. That Friday, I told her I needed to spend the weekend at the cabin. She blinked. Just once. Too fast. Oh, I thought you hated the cold. I don't mind it. You sure? I can go with you if... No, I said, smiling gently. I need the quiet. Just for a night. She nodded, but I saw it. The twitch in her fingers. The delayed blink. The mental math happening behind her eyes. She was trying to figure out how to warn him. I left early Saturday morning. Made a show of loading my gear into the truck. Rifle, thermos, tackle box, all the trappings. I even waved goodbye from the porch. Then I turned off my phone and drove straight to Lakeview Outfitters, a gear shop that had one thing I needed. Trail cameras. Motion activated. Low light. Real-time feeds. I bought 4, then headed toward the cabin. By noon, I was parked in the same spot as before. I took the long way in, set up cameras in the trees surrounding the porch, the fire pit, and 2 pointed directly at the rear door and would shed. I camouflaged the last one and aimed it at the blind, so I could watch them watch me, if it came to that. Then I left. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a buddy's lake house 30 minutes away and camped out on his couch. By sunset, I had a feed on my phone, and around 6:42 p.m., a red Tacoma pulled into the clearing. Clay got out first. Lana followed. They didn't waste time. The video caught them unloading bags, firewood, and what looked like a fresh bottle of bourbon. By 7:15, they were by the fire again. By 7:30, she was sitting in his lap. I muted the audio. Didn't need to hear it. Didn't need to see the kiss either. But I watched anyway, because I had to make it real. The next day, I copied all the footage onto a thumb drive. Then 2 more. Labeled them simply, cabin feed. One went into my safe. The second, into a bank deposit box. The third, I kept in my pocket. Insurance. At dinner that night, Lana said, I missed you this weekend. I smiled. Yeah. I forgot how peaceful it is up there. She was testing me, seeing if I'd bite. I'm thinking about heading up again next weekend. she added, not looking up from her soup. Sure, I said. It's your cabin too. She smiled. Didn't blink. That's when I knew. She thought she'd won. I spent the next week crafting the setup. Ordered 2 custom hunting jackets. His and hers. Same brand, same colors. Heavyweight canvas, fleece-lined. Real nice. Inside the lining of each, I folded divorce papers. Served. Signed. Witnessed. I tucked the USB into hers, along with a short note. Turns out the woods do speak. Merry Christmas. And then I waited. Christmas morning, I handed her the box by the tree, wrapped in green paper, tied with twine. Open it, I said. She smiled, unknowing. She reached in, pulled out the first jacket. Oh wow, these are beautiful. Check the pockets. She did. First, confusion. Then the paper. She unfolded it. Once, twice, 3 times, and her breath hitched. I saw the moment she realized what it was. Her lips parted. Eyes flicked to me. Then she reached into the second jacket. The USB tumbled out. Clicked against the hardwood. She didn't even pick it up. Just stared at it like it was a live grenade. Who told you? She whispered. No one, I said. You did. I stood, walked over, picked up my keys. I'll be at my brother's for dinner. She didn't move. Didn't cry. Didn't apologize. I didn't wait for her to. It's a strange thing, driving away from your own house on Christmas morning with a smile on your face. I thought I'd feel sick. Instead, I felt clean. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't holding back. I wasn't pretending. I'd taken what I knew and used it, calmly, decisively. The duck blind had shown me the truth. But that envelope, that jacket, that was my shot across the bow. I didn't expect her to respond. Not right away. But I knew she'd call him. And I knew he'd panic. That's what snakes do when you step into their grass. I spent the rest of Christmas at my brother Sam's place, just outside Clarksburg. He and his wife had no idea what was going on. I hadn't told them. We watched football, passed around plates of ham and cheesy potatoes, and poured a little too much bourbon once the kids went to bed. Around midnight, I stepped outside to clear my head. Checked my phone. 1 missed call. Clay Maddox. I didn't call him back. 2 days later, Lana moved out. No drama. No theatrics. She came while I was at work, packed what she could fit into her SUV, and left her house key in the mailbox, along with a short note. You always deserved better. I just didn't know how to say it. I didn't respond. I just folded it and threw it in the burn barrel out back. By New Year's, I had a new lock on the door and a scheduled appointment with a trust attorney in Jasper. Jake, my cousin from the courthouse, had flagged some paperwork I needed to see in person. I met him and the attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Brenner, in a paneled office that smelled like dust and lemon oil. She slid a manila folder across the table. What am I looking at? I asked. A ghost. Inside was a printout of activity from the Nimble Family Trust, which was originally built by my grandfather and split among 3 branches: my dad's line, me and Sam, my uncles, Clay, and our aunt, who'd passed years ago and had no children. Everything was supposed to be distributed equally, but over the last 6 months, funds had been moved. Moved how? I asked. Into a side account under the trustee named T. Dobson. That's my name. Jake leaned forward. Not your signature, though. I scanned the forms. The signature was a bad imitation, too loopy, too clean. Clay had always been good at copying things. Not forging them. Copying. Enough to fool someone who wasn't looking closely. You're telling me he used my name to drain the account? Brenner nodded. To the tune of almost $87,000. I leaned back in the chair, heart thudding. That's theft, I said. Not just that, she replied. It's fraud, identity misuse, and potentially embezzlement. Especially if your cousin presented himself as the acting trustee in any legal capacity. Jake added, if this goes to court, it's going to pull the whole trust open. So what happens now? We build the case, Brenner said. Quietly. Until it's airtight. Over the next 3 weeks, I gathered everything. Copies of the cabin footage. The note Lana left me. Old photos proving Clay's prior access to the cabin and family properties. Screenshots of bank notifications and accounts. Each piece tightened the noose. And the deeper I looked, the more I realized this wasn't a recent thing. Clay had always been circling. He'd started small, borrowing money from an aunt here, running up a tab at the bait shop and forgetting to pay. Then came the bigger moves. Selling land he didn't own, flipping hunting leases behind the family's back, and tapping into trusts with just enough charm to avoid suspicion. And Lana? She'd fallen into it willingly. There were Venmo records from her account to his under-fake utility payments. Gas station receipts near the bank where the false wire transfers were authorized. She wasn't just having an affair. She was laundering his lies. I filed the civil complaint mid-January. It took about a week for the notice to hit his mailbox. On a cold Thursday, Jake called me from the clerk's office. He just stormed in, red-faced, demanding answers. Did he know it was me? Not yet, Jake said. But he's going to. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. I listened. It was Clay. His voice was calm. Too calm. Terry, we're family, man. I know you're mad. But you don't have to go nuclear. Let's talk. Let's fix this before lawyers get rich off our blood. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to Brenner. She called me that night. We're close, she said. I need two more things. A notarized statement confirming he used your name without permission, and a sworn affidavit from any family member who saw him access trust materials. I thought for a second. I know who I can ask. I drove out to Sam's place the next morning. Told him everything. At first, he didn't believe me. He and Clay had been close. Maybe not best friends, but closer than I ever was. But once I showed him the footage, the ledgers, Lana's note, he nodded. Quiet. You want me to swear it? Just tell the truth. He did. We signed it together. By February, the lawsuit was in motion. Clay was served at his girlfriend's new apartment just outside Boone Creek, not the cabin. Not even his name on the lease. 3 days later, I got a call from a reporter. Mr. Dobson, I'm writing a piece about financial fraud in rural inheritance cases. I was given your name in connection with the Maddox Trust. From who? Let's just say your cousin's been talking. He says this is all a misunderstanding. Of course he did. That night, Lana texted me for the first time since Christmas. You didn't have to do this. It could have stayed between us. I stared at the screen, then replied, you should have stayed out of my cabin. She never wrote back. Clay showed up at the cabin on the first Saturday in March. I knew he would. That place was our shared bloodline, an unspoken altar passed down from my father, who got it from his father before him. If Clay was going to make any kind of last-ditch plea or throw down a threat, he'd do it there. That was his style. Make it sentimental so you forget it's poison. I beat him there by 2 hours. Snow still clung to the roots and shaded corners of the clearing, but the sun was strong enough to make the air feel like early spring. I opened all the windows to air the place out, then built a fire just like Dad taught me. Small, patient, letting the coals do the work. I brewed coffee and waited. At 10:48 a.m., his truck crunched into the gravel drive. Red Tacoma. Same as before. Same dent in the bumper. He didn't know I'd installed a gate camera 2 weeks ago. Didn't know I'd told Brenner and Jake that I was coming up here. Just in case. He stepped out, jacket slung over one shoulder, no smile. His beard looked more unkempt than before. Eyes bloodshot. Tension in his jaw. Hell of a welcome, he said, gesturing toward the untouched snow. You came uninvited. He walked up the porch slowly, looked around like he was soaking it in. Still smells like Uncle Dean in there. He's the reason this place exists, I said. Not you. He nodded once, eyes scanning the firewood stack, the trail cameras, maybe noticing them, maybe not. You still bitter? I didn't answer. He leaned on the railing. You don't have to do this, Terry. I looked at him. Do what? Burn it all down. The trust. Your marriage. The family name. I laughed. You did that. I'm just handing out the ashtrays. He pushed off the railing, agitated now. Look, I get it. I crossed a line. Slept with your wife, yeah. Shouldn't have. But you and Lana were done already. Everyone could see it. That doesn't make it right. He scoffed. And what? Hiding in a duck blind with binoculars does. I stood slowly, letting the firelight hit my face. You've got a pattern, Clay. Sweet talk, lie, steal. Rinse and repeat. But this time you messed up. He sneered. Because I got caught. Because you used my name. You didn't just cheat. You stole. You forged. You buried a knife in my back and told the world it was my hand holding it. He paused, then looked at me hard. I can fix it, he said. I'll pay it back. All of it. Just drop the case. It doesn't have to go federal. That's not up to me anymore. Yes, it is, he snapped. You started this. No, I said. You did. The day you stepped foot in this cabin and thought you could pretend to be part of this family again. He flinched. That hit deeper than I expected. You think you're better than me, he muttered. I don't think, I said. I know. He stood there for a beat too long, fists clenched, his boots shifting in the snow like he didn't know whether to swing or storm off. Then he exhaled hard, turned, and stomped back to the truck. Before he climbed in, he looked back. This place doesn't belong to you either, you know. It's just a bunch of dead trees and broken promises. I nodded once. Funny. That's exactly how I remember you. He drove off without another word. That night, I sat in the cabin alone, reading from one of Dad's old hunting journals. In the back pages, I found a list. Just a handwritten roll of names. March 1987, Spring Prep Crew. Dean Dobson. Terry Dobson, age 10. Sam Dobson. Clay Maddox, last time. For names. One with a note beside it. I ran my finger over the ink. Dad knew. Even back then, he knew Clay couldn't be trusted. The next week, the civil complaint triggered a formal investigation. Clay's financials were flagged. His bank accounts frozen. His previous venture partner, some guy out of Shelbyville, flipped within days and handed over emails. Turns out Clay had been planning to pitch a property flip business to out-of-state investors, using the family trust as proof of capital backing. Only he didn't own the trust. And the T. Dobson signature on his paperwork? A straight lift from a fishing license I'd once signed and left in the cabin drawer. He'd planned this meticulously. By mid-March, the case was prepping for court. Brenner called me one afternoon and said, "We've got enough for a criminal fraud referral if you want to press it." I sat with that for a while. "You don't have to," she said. "Civil will freeze his assets and recover what's left. Criminal goes further. Public. Real jail time." I thought of Clay standing on the cabin porch. I thought of Dad's name in that journal. "Press it," I said. "All of it." 2 days later, a county sheriff knocked on Clay's door. Lana answered. They arrested him on the spot. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Trust abuse. Federal complaint pending. She didn't say a word. Just stood in the doorway while he was cuffed. She called me that night. I didn't answer. I didn't listen to Lana's first voicemail. Didn't read her first text. Didn't answer when she knocked on the door a week later. She came at night. Stood on the porch like a ghost, bundled in a heavy coat with trembling hands. I saw her through the curtain, but didn't open the door. After a minute, she slid something into the crack of the screen door and walked back to her car. I waited until the tail lights disappeared before opening it. It was a letter, folded in half. No envelope. Just a name written in the corner in her handwriting, mine. I took it inside. Sat at the kitchen table. Poured a whiskey. Read it once. Then again. Then I folded it back up and lit a match. Tossed it into the fireplace and let it burn. But I remember every word. "Terry, I know you won't answer, so I'm writing this the way we used to, back when we still believed in letters. First, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I owe it to you. I didn't plan to fall into this. I didn't even think I was falling, not at first. Clay showed up last summer while you were working weekends. Said he was visiting family. Said he was trying to get right. He remembered the cabin. Asked if I'd been up there recently. I didn't know then what he was really doing. I thought. I don't know what I thought. Maybe I just wanted someone to see me again. You were so tired all the time. Quiet. Distant. I figured we were just coasting. That doesn't make what I did right. When he started bringing up the trust stuff, I tuned it out. But by then I was already helping. I was covering trips. Hiding things. I lied. I watched you suffer and still lied. I'm not asking for you to forgive me. I just want you to know I never stopped loving the man you are. I just didn't know how to live next to your silence. I hope you find peace. I hope you breathe again. L. That last line stuck with me. I hope you breathe again. It made me realize how long I'd been holding my breath. Spring came fast after that. The lawsuit gained traction. Clay's court date was set for early June. Word spread through the county faster than wildfire. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Clay had screwed over. A contractor in Shelbyville. A hunting lodge co-op down in Jasper Ridge. An ex-girlfriend from college who'd loaned him $9,000 to get back on his feet. And then there were the bank statements. The fake documents. The impersonations. He didn't just cross a line. He danced on it. Lana moved in with her sister. I didn't ask where. Didn't care. She never contested the divorce. Didn't fight me on property. Didn't ask for the cabin. Didn't even try to split my truck or tools. She just signed where needed, turned in the papers, and walked out quietly. That told me more than any apology ever could. Sam helped me gut the cabin over a weekend. We hauled out every blanket, every dish, every couch pillow, scrubbed the walls, repainted the trim, re-oiled the wood stove. I even burned the couch she and Clay had used. It felt like scrubbing a scar. At one point, Sam found the old duck decoy my dad carved, the one we thought we'd lost to a raccoon years ago. He held it out to me. "Still floats," he said. I laughed for the first time in weeks. That Sunday night, I wrote a letter of my own. Not to Lana, not to Clay, but to myself. I sat in the duck blind, the one place where I first saw the truth, and put pen to paper. "Dear Terry, you made it. You didn't break. You didn't swing when you could have. You didn't scream when it hurt. You waited, watched, struck when it counted. That's how your father taught you. That's how you'll teach someday. The cabin is yours. The name is clean. The peace you feel right now, hold on to it. Not everyone gets to start over this way. Not everyone deserves to. But you do, because you did it the right way. TD." I folded the letter and tucked it under the decoy. A reminder. A week later, I got a call from Brenner. "You sitting down?" she asked. I was on the porch, feet up, dog asleep beside me. "Try me." The feds picked up the fraud complaint. They're building an interstate case against Clay. I blinked. "You serious?" "He's being held without bond. Multiple states are involved. It's big." I didn't speak for a long second. Then I said, "Good." That night, I watched the fire burn low in the pit outside the cabin. The stars were out. Real clear. Wind coming off the lake. No texts. No lies. No letters. Just quiet. The kind of quiet I hadn't known in a long time. And finally, I breathed. Clay Maddox walked into the Jasper County Courthouse in cuffs, wearing a county-issued suit that looked 2 sizes too big and 10 years too old. I almost didn't recognize him. Gaunt. Pale. His eyes had that sunken look, the kind that came from bad sleep and too many nights bargaining with ceilings. He didn't see me. Not right away. I was sitting in the 3rd row, clean shave, pressed shirt. Sam was beside me. Brenner too rose up. The place was packed. Half of them reporters, the rest local faces with curiosity painted across their expressions. The trial hadn't started yet, but it felt like it had. This was the main event, and Clay knew it. The judge entered at 9:03 a.m. The charges were read aloud. Identity theft, wire fraud, embezzlement, criminal impersonation, obstruction of fiduciary responsibility. And then the twist. Federal interest. Turns out one of the banks Clay had funneled money through was backed by a rural military credit union, meaning his activity crossed into protected financial networks. That bumped the fraud into federal territory. His lawyer tried to play it cool, talked about family misunderstandings, ambiguous trust language, and no intent to permanently deprive the account holders. But Brenner stood up, slid the USB across the prosecution table, and said, "We have video of him entering the property under false pretenses. Multiple times. With a key that wasn't his. With a woman who wasn't his. Conducting transactions with access he never legally had." The courtroom went still. Then she said it. "And we have a notarized letter from the defendant's former lover, acknowledging her role in concealing and aiding these transactions." Yeah, Lana flipped. That part had come 2 weeks prior. Out of nowhere, Brenner called me. She came in, she said. Lana said she was tired of covering for him. Brought texts, bank stubs, even his burner phone. I didn't know what to say. Brenner continued. She wanted a deal. In exchange for testimony. What kind of deal? No jail. Clean record. Full cooperation. I sat with that. Then I said, she can testify, but I don't want to see her again. And that was that. In court, she took the stand wearing a gray blouse and flat shoes. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Her voice was soft but steady. She answered every question Brenner asked. Yes, she'd helped Clay open the P.O. box. Yes, she'd witnessed him logging into the trust accounts. Yes, she'd received money in her own Venmo as clean payments. No, she didn't know about the impersonated fishing license until later. Then Brenner asked, Did Mr. Maddox ever ask you to lie? Lana looked down, then back up. Yes, she said. Many times. And did you? She swallowed. Yes. Do you regret it? A beat passed. Then, every single day. I didn't clap. Didn't smile. Didn't feel much of anything. Not hate. Not pity. Just done. It was like watching a movie of someone else's life. One I'd already walked out of. The jury took 2 days. They came back on a rainy Tuesday with a verdict that dropped like a hammer. Guilty. All charges. Sentencing was scheduled for the following month. Maximum penalty for the federal charge alone? 20 years. Outside the courthouse, Clay's mother, my Aunt Janice, cornered me. Her voice was tight, wrinkled with grief and anger. "You happy now?" she said. "You tore your family apart." I looked her straight in the eye. "No," I said. "Clay did that. I just stopped pretending it didn't happen." She turned away. Didn't speak to me at the sentencing. Didn't show up for the cabin auction, either. That's right. I sold the cabin. Not because I needed the money. The trust had been reinstated, and Brenner made sure every stolen cent was accounted for. But because I realized something, the duck blind, the lake, the firelight, they were sacred. I couldn't risk those memories getting stained again. So I listed it quietly. Sold it to an older couple from upstate who wanted to raise retrievers and maybe rent it out in the summer. They didn't ask about its history. I didn't offer it. Sam and I split the proceeds. He used his to finally pay off his second mortgage. I bought a place near the ridge line. Smaller. No lake. No blind. Just open sky and good soil. Started over. Lana never reached out again. Not after court. Not after the sale. Not even when she heard, through the grapevine, that I'd been offered a seat on the local board of trustees. Irony, huh? They wanted me to help oversee new guidelines for estate transparency and rural account access. I said yes. I figured I'd earned the right to protect what was once stolen. Clay's sentencing hit the papers. He got 12 years, no chance of parole before 7. White-collar prison, minimum security, but a cage is still a cage, even if it's painted beige. They said he wept. I didn't go. Didn't need to. My justice came the moment I saw that verdict hit the docket, and the moment I turned in the cabin key for the last time. A month later, I visited the duck blind one last time. The new owners were kind, said I could walk the property if I wanted, just for closure. I stepped into the blind just as the sun cracked through the fog. Same wood, same creek, same smell of pine and moss. Only now, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't watching. I was free. I left something behind, a letter. Tucked it under the old duck decoy Dad carved. A new one. For whoever finds this. This blind caught a lot more than birds. It caught lies. It caught regret. But it also caught truth, and gave a man the spine to stand back up. If you're here to hunt, aim true. If you're here to heal, stay as long as you need. Signed, TD. And just like that, the duck blind let me go. And I finally let it go too. End of story. Subscribe to the channel